All right, so I want to start with a couple of things here. First of all, I want to start with this case I just mentioned to the folks here. U.S. District Judge Terry Doty in Monroe, Louisiana, issued an injunction on the 4th of July telling the federal government, no, you're not allowed to work with private companies to censor Americans, because quite clearly that's a violation of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. He handed down that ruling in response to a suit filed by the states of Louisiana and Missouri. The government came back and asked for a stay. He said no. So now they've appealed to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. The government of the United States is appealing its ability to censor you and I. They don't want to take no for an answer. They want the ability to work with Facebook or Twitter or whomever to silence you, to silence me, and it is, to me, outrageous. What say you?
Well, here's what's happening. The government knows it is limited by the Constitution that says you can't interfere with freedom of speech. So what the court's doing here, and here's our constitutional checks and balances at work. This is what our framers designed our Constitution for. The judiciary is providing that check on the abuse of government power in the executive branch, because what the executive branch is doing here is they're trying to get around having to comply with the First Amendment. They're limited by the First Amendment provision that says they can't interfere with freedom of speech. So what they were trying to do is to get these private companies to do it for them, and because a private company obviously is not required to comply with the Constitution, because that only applies
for them, Professor. But let me jump in, William, because they're doing it, but they have, in some of these cases, they had full access by way of a quote-unquote backdoor into Twitter at the time, different ownership then, before Elon Musk, into the backdoor of Zuckerberg's Facebook, so they could come in and say, oh, we don't like this one, get rid of this one, get rid of this. So, yeah, they're using the private company, but with specific direction from government agents. Silence Donald Trump and his supporters. Suppress that. Advance this agenda. Get rid of that one. Delete that entire account. Get rid of that account. I mean, this is what they were doing for years.
Well, and the scary thing about it is they're not regulating and trying to suppress, speech that is like a conversation about what you're going to have for breakfast. What they're trying to suppress is the most protected and the most precious speech we have. They're trying to protect, or they're trying to suppress political speech. They're trying to censor, religious conscience. All these things that are so precious to the American people, and you think these companies would have agreed to do this had they not been in bed with...
Oh, they're in bed together. They're all in bed together. They all have the same twisted view of the world. America's a bad place. We must silence these peasants that have their pitchforks and so on and so forth. But here's the problem, William. Here's really what the problem is. The next step of this conversation is they're still doing it. I have no doubt the government's still doing it today. They're ignoring this ruling. They're just trying to get a pass on it so they don't have to, hide what they're doing. But they continue. They ignore the courts. That's what's remarkable about the Biden administration. Oh, the court said this? Yeah, we don't care. Oh, that's the law? We're going to ignore it. I see example of that over and over again lately, and so do you, I'm sure.
Yeah, that is exactly correct, and that's why the framers set up a constitutional system that requires us on the other side, the side that's trying to get truth out, the side that's trying to not censor or allow the government to censor ideas. That's why we have to be relentless in our pursuit of truth. We have to be relentless in shining the light on corruption. And when our framers set up a framework that when you shine the light, when you've got a free press, when you've got Steve Gruber in the morning shining the light of truth on this ugliness, we may not win today. They may still censor tomorrow, but if we keep shining that light, it's kind of like the cockroaches that spread very quickly. They don't like the light of transparency, and so
my light is a little different.